Let's go one more time. So this session is about elasticity, as I mentioned. For those of you who are not in the class, we're supposed to record it. These are the objectives. Then we are going to predict the quantitative changes on the prices due to changes on the prices. We will have some changes on demand and supply. So here we have this figure A is a change in a supply brings in a small increase in the quantity demanded and large fall in the price. So as you can see in this figure, if there is a change in the supply, so from S0 we go to S1, there will be an increase in supply which moves the supply bar from S0 to S1, so moves it rightward. So, and that shows an increase in the supply. So it will also increase the quantity demanded and a large fall in the price. So and in figure B, a change in the supply brings in a large increase in the quantity and the demanded and a small fall in the price. So as you can see, when the supply increases, the quantity increases and the price sort of falls. So for the same quantity, now we have a lower price. So price elasticity of demand. The contrast between the two outcomes in the figure highlights the need for measure of the responsiveness of quantity demanded to the price change. So when there is a price change, there is a difference between quantity demanded, which we need to realize and understand. Price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand is a units-free measure of the responsiveness of the quantity demanded of a good or to a change in the price when all the other influences remains the same. So price elasticity of the demand is a unit-free measure of responsiveness of the quantity demanded. What is the quantity that we demand according to a unit-free measure of responsiveness of a good to a change in its price. There's a formula actually for it. The percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by percentage change in the price. So we call it delta Q, which is quality, which means the change in quality percentage divided by percentage change, which is delta P, which is change in the prices, will give us the elasticity. Okay. So price elasticity of demand. To calculate the price elasticity of demand, we express the change in the price as a percentage of average price. So in order to be able to calculate the elasticity of demand, we should be able to put that in a percentage, the price change, and the average of the initial and new price. So initial and new price. And we express the change in the quantity demanded as a percentage of the average quantity demanded, the average of the initial and new quantity. So basically, we get the average of price and average of quantity, and basically we divide them together as we discussed in the previous formula. So quantity divided by price gives us the elasticity of demand. So price elasticity of demand. In the figure calculates the price elasticity of demand for pizza, as you can see here. The price initially is $2.50 and the quantity demanded is 9 pizzas. So at the price of $20.50, their demand of 9 pizzas. Then the price falls to $19.50 from 2050 to $19.50, and the quantity demand increases to 11. So the fall in the price is $1, and the quantity demand increases by 2. So the elasticity of demand, the average price is 20, and the average quantity demand is 10 pizzas an hour. Okay, so we got the average. So the percentage change in quantity demanded is calculated by 2 divided by 10, which is 1/5, and the percentage change in price is divided by P, which is 1 divided by 20. Okay? So then the price elasticity is 20 divided by 5, which is 4. Okay, let's just do it one more time to make sure everybody is following. So if we calculate the price elasticity of a demand we mentioned, we express the change in the price as percentage of the average price, the average of the initial and new price, and we express the change in the quantity demanded as a percentage and the average of the initial and new quantity. Okay, so here we have 9 pizzas demanded at $20.50. New price for the pizza is $19.50, and the demand increases to 11. So $20.50 plus $19.50 divided by 2, we get the average of 20. And then there is a difference of price of $1, and the price, yes, $1. And the average quantity, 11 plus 9 divided by 2, is 10. So the quantity average is 10, and the difference in quantity is 2. So now, to understand the price elasticity, we divide that 20 by 5. And basically we realize. Okay, if there is any questions, please let me know. Is everybody following me? And as you can see, the elasticity, which is 4, is at the middle of that bar. Is everybody following? Any questions so far? So the difference in price divided by its average, the difference in quantity divided by its average, and then we divide the quantity by the price, the results, and its elasticity of the demand. So it is pretty straightforward. Yeah, 20 by 5 is just first we divide 1/5 divided by 1/20, and it's just a simple math, so it will be as if you're dividing 20 by 5. So when you divide 1/5 over 1/20, it equals 20/5. Because when we have 1/5 over 1/20th, the simple math makes the simple diversion, and we can simplify it into 20 divided by 5. You follow me? You know how it's done? So 1 over 5 divided by 1 over 20. So the 20 from the bottom comes over the top, and 5 from the bottom goes over to the bottom, and it's 20 over 5, which is 4. So when is 1 over 5 divided by 1 over 20 for us to be able to simplify, we multiply the 20 at the bottom will come up to the denominator, and numerator, and the 5 from the bottom goes to the bottom, and it will be 20 divided by 5. And it's equal to 4. Okay, that is how we simplify it. Okay? Did you get it? Yeah, it's simple math, my friend. When we divide 1 by 5, so in order for us to be able to simplify, just write it down. Copy, paste. So this equals to 20 multiplied by 1 divided by 5 multiplied by 1. So the 1 at the very bottom comes to the very top, and the 5 at the bottom goes to the bottom of the new denominator. We multiply the 1 on the very top with the 20 and 5 with the 1, and then divide them together. So 20 multiplied by 1 is 20, divided by 5 multiplied 1 is 5. So it's actually a simple math calculation. Or if you don't like it that way, you divide 1 by 5, which is 25.25, and then divide 1 by 20, which is 0.05, and then it would still give you the same number, which is 4, if you don't like to do it this way. Okay. Okay, beautiful. So by using the average price and average quantity, we get the same elasticity value regardless of whether the price rises or falls. So that elasticity of demand, which for the previous case was 4, means that by using the average price and average quantity, we get the same elasticity value regardless whether the price rises or falls. The ratio of 2 proportionate changes is the same as the ratio of 2 percentage changes. So the measure is unit-free because it's a ratio of two percentage changes, and the percentages cancel out. Changing the units of measurement of price or quantity leave the elasticity value the same. So, can you guys hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay, very good. Beautiful. So the formula yields a negative value because price and quantity move in opposite directions. But it is magnitude or absolute value of the measure that reveals how responsive the quantity changes has been to price changes. So the negative value doesn't matter. All you need is the quantity of or the magnitude of the result, because the measure reveals how responsive the quantity changes has been to a price change. Okay, price elasticity of demand, inelastic versus and elastic demand. Well, we discussed about elastic and inelastic demand. So demand can be inelastic, unit elastic, or elastic, and can range from 0 to infinity. Okay? So if the quantity demanded doesn't change when the price changes, the price elasticity of demand is 0, and the good has a perfectly inelastic demand. We discussed about like water or essential products that doesn't matter how the price changes, the demand is not going to change, and that we call it perfectly inelastic demand. So price elasticity of a demand. So this figure illustrates the case of a good that has a perfectly inelastic demand and has a vertical demand curve. So for elasticity of 0, you see that it doesn't matter how the price change for a for a perfectly inelastic demand. As you can see, the quantity will stay the same. People will use this much water no matter what the price is, let's say. So in that case, the perfectly inelastic demand is the case. If the percentage change in the quantity demanded equals the percentage change in the price elasticity of demand equals 1, and the good has unit elastic demand. So if there is one percentage increase, and let's say there's one increase in the price, and there will be 1% change increase in the quantity, or even same, like no matter what, like if it's 2 and then, but we basically focus on 1. When there is one same quantity change, we call it unit elastic demand. So figure B illustrates this case, and the demand curve with the ever declining slope. Note that the demand curve is not linear. So as you can see, the demand curve in this case is not linear because elasticity is different, because it's the difference that we are counting. It's not that a direct number. So it's a different change in the price over the difference in the change in the quantity. Okay. So price elasticity of demand. Between the two previous cases, the percentage change in the quantity demanded is smaller than the percentage change in the price, so the price elasticity of a demand is less than 1, and a good has inelastic demand. If the percentage change in the quantity demanded is infinitively large when the price barely changes, the price elasticity of demand is infinite, and the good has perfectly elastic demand. So when the change when the change on the quantity demanded would be infinitely large, means there will be a huge change in the quantity demanded due to the price changes, then you have a perfectly elastic demand. So as you can see in this chart, it illustrates the case of perfectly elastic demand, a horizontal demand curve. If the percentage change in the quantity demanded is greater than the percentage change in the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, and the good has elastic demand. So as you can see in this chart, if the percentage change in the quantity demanded is greater than the percentage change in the price change, then the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. So it's not unit elastic, but it's more than 1. So we call it an elastic demand. The good would be called an elastic demand. Okay. Then we have elasticity, price elasticity of demand, and elasticity along a straight line demand curve. This figure shows how demand becomes less elastic as the price falls along a linear demand curve. So as you can see, demand becomes less elastic when the price falls along a linear demand curve. So at lower prices, basically the elasticity will be less. You know, at higher prices, the elasticity is higher. So prices above the midpoint is that black dot in the middle where we have 25 quantity and $12.50 for price. Above that, the demand is elastic. But at prices below the midpoint, demand is inelastic. So as you can see, on a certain product also, the midpoint gives us a idea of where the prices, where the demand curve is elastic and where it's not, it's inelastic. For example, if the price falls from 25 to 15, okay, so $25 becomes $15. The quantity demanded increases from 0 to 20. So you see the difference. So from 20 to 25, there's a change from 0 to 20. An hour, pizza an hour. So the average price is $20, and the average quantity is 10, right? So we divide the difference, 20 by 10 and 10 by 20, and we will get 4 for price elasticity of demand. Just to recap the formula, we have the difference in quantity divided by the quantity average, and then difference in price divided by price average is our formula for elasticity of demand, right? So going back here, our difference in quantity is zero to 20, right? So there's 20, and 0 plus 20 divided by 2 is 10. So 20 over 10. And then the difference in price is 25 from 20, which is 5, divided by 25 plus 20, which is 45 divided by 2. Oh, sorry. It's 25 minus 15, which is $10 divided by the addition of 25 plus 15, which is 40 divided by 2 is 10 over 20. So 20 over 10 divided by 10 over 20 equals 4. Okay? Are you following me, everybody? Any questions so far? Okay, very good, very good. As you can see, we are sort of going forward with the previous understandings of the previous lessons. So those are really helpful, and you see how it's just getting more evolved and more aspects to it. So if the price falls, so this is another scenario now. If the price falls from $10 to $0, so the difference in the price, the quantity demanded increases from 30 to 50 pizzas an hour, right? So the average price would be 5, and the average quantity would be 40, right? So the price elasticity of the demand is 20 over 40 divided by 10 over 5. And then the result equals 1 over 5, which is 1 over 5 is 0.25. So that is our elasticity of the demand. So if the price falls from 15 to 10, the quantity demanded increases from 20 to 30 pizzas an hour. So the average price would be 12.50 and the average quantity would be 25. So the price elasticity of the demand is 10 over 25 divided by 5 over 12.5, and that will equal to the elasticity of the demand of 1. So we discussed the elasticity of the demand of 1. We call it unit elastic. When it's less than 1, we call it inelastic. When it's more, we call it elastic. Okay. So now we are going to understand what's the relationship between total revenue and elasticity. Total revenue from the sale of a good or service equals the price of a good multiplied by the quantity that is sold from that good. So whatever quantity that we sell multiplied by the price will get the total revenue. When the price changes, total revenue also changes. But a rising price doesn't always increase the total revenue. That's very important because a lot of people, a lot of folks, they believe when you increase the price, you will increase your revenue. It's not true. Your price increases, but what happens to your total revenue? The change in the total revenue due to change in the price depends on the elasticity of the demand. So this is one factor that you need to consider when you change your price. If a demand is elastic, a 1% price cut increases the quantity sold by more than 1% and total revenue increases. So for an elastic demand, 1% cut in the price will increase the quantity sold by more than 1%, so your total revenue increases. If the demand is inelastic, 1% cut in the price, the quantity sold decreases the quantity sold by more than 1%, and the total revenue decreases. And if demand is unit elastic, a 1% cut increases the quantity sold by 1%, so the total revenue stays the same. So as you can see, your total revenue has a very direct relationship between your price elasticity of the demand. If you have a price elasticity over 1, then a cut in the price increases your total revenue. If you have unit elastic, there is no change. And if you have inelastic, which is less than 1, then a percentage increase, 1% price cut decreases the quantity by more than 1%. So your revenue, your total revenue will also decrease. So now you see how you can relate all these concepts that we are learning and how we calculate into real practical business cases and scenarios. So for you to understand whether you need to decrease or increase your prices, you need to know whether your price is inelastic or elastic, and then calculate the elasticity of that price. And that all helps you to basically make decisions, financial decisions in the market. So the total revenue test is a method of estimating the price elasticity of the demand by observing the change in total revenue that results from a price change. And it is when all other influences on the quantity sold will remain the same. So in this case, if a price cut increases total revenue, demand is elastic. If a price cut decreases total revenue, demand is inelastic. And if a price cut leaves total revenue unchanged, demand is unit elastic. So this is based on all those explanations that we just discussed. A price cut, when it increases the revenue, it's elastic. When it decreases, it's inelastic. And finally, when it remains the same, it actually is unit elastic. Any questions so far? Are you following me? Any comments or questions? No comments, no questions. Are we good to go? Okay, seems that we are good. Price elasticity of demand. So this figure shows the relationship between elasticity of the demand for pizzas and total revenue from pizzas. In a part that is shown here, you know, the elastic demand, as the price falls from 25 to 12.50, the demand is elastic and the total revenue increases. So at the top part, there is by price fall, we have increase in the revenue, total revenue increases. But at the 12.50, demand is unit elastic. So the revenue stays the same. And as the price falls from 12.50 to 0, the demand is inelastic and total revenue decreases. So price elasticity of demand in part B shown here. As the quantity increases from 0 to 25, the demand is elastic and total revenue increases. At 25, the demand is unit elastic and total revenue is at its maximum. And finally, as the quantity increases from 25 to 50, the demand is inelastic and total revenue decreases. So for us, we will always want to be at our optimal total revenue, which is we get the maximum total revenue. So the unit elastic is where we want to stay at, because we are getting the maximum revenue out of what we are selling. So your expenditure and your elasticity. We are trying to understand and discuss the same concept in many different levels and many different aspects. So if your demand is elastic, a 1% price cut increases the quantity you buy by more than 1%, and your expenditure on the item increases. So now we are looking at it as the expenditure side, right? So this is on the customer side, not on the seller side. So if your demand is elastic, okay, 1% price cut increases the quantity you buy more than 1%, and your expenditure on the item increases. So you spend more on that item because your demand is elastic. If your demand is inelastic, 1% price cut increases the quantity you buy by less than 1%, and your expenditure on the item decreases. All right? And finally, if the demand is unit elastic, which means 1% price cut increases the quantity you buy by 1%, then your expenditure stays the same. So this is the viewpoint of the buyer. So price elasticity of demand. The factors that influence the price elasticity of the demand are the elasticity of the demand for a good depends on the closeness of substitutes. Means that what are the substitutes that they can use? Let's say if it's like Coke, they can use soda. So they have these, or like Sprite or all those other drinks. So if Sprite has increasing the price, people will go buy Coke or Coca-Cola. The proportion of the income spent on the good. So what proportion of the income is spent on that good? That helps us to understand the elasticity of demand. And the time elapsed since the price has changed. So there is a time that it takes for the price to change, and that also is important for influencing the elasticity of demand. Okay. Then again, on the closest of substitutes, the closer the substitutes for a good or service, the more elastic is the demand for it. Yes, like as I mentioned, like Coke and Pepsi, they are really close substitutes, so the elasticity of the demand for that product is really high. Necessities such as food or housing generally have inelastic demand. So food or housing, like those stuff that we need, basically they have they are inelastic. Luxuries such as exotic vacations generally have elastic demands. Then on proportion of the income that is spent on the good. The greater the proportion of income consumers spend on a good, the larger the elasticity of the demand. So if you spend a large amount of your the money that you make on a good, then you have a higher elasticity of that demand. And the time elapsed since the price change. The more time consumers have to adjust to a price change, or the longer that a good can be stored without losing its value, the more elastic demand for that good. So there is also these other aspect to price elasticity, which is time. So when the consumer buys a product at a certain price, and then the time that it takes for the product to have a change in the price, If that time is longer and the good can be stored without losing its value, it's pretty elastic. But if it loses its value, it's inelastic. Okay? Okay, cross elasticity of demand. So what is cross elasticity of the demand? It's a measure of responsiveness of demand for a good to a change in the price of a substitute or a complement. Other things remaining the same. And the formula. So the percentage change in quantity demanded and percentage change in the price of the substitute or the complement. So basically the cross elasticity is considering what is the elasticity of demand compared to other complement or substitute products. So the difference, the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in the price for substitute or complement will give you the cross elasticity of demand. Everybody is following me, I hope? Any questions? Any comments, questions? Are we all good? Okay, so it seems to be no questions, so we move forward. So more elasticities of demand. The cross elasticity of demand for a substitute is positive. The cross elasticity of demand for complement is negative. So for the formula that we just discussed, the cross elasticity for a substitute is always positive, but for a complement is always negative. Okay? So this figure shows the increase in the quantity of pizza demanded when the price of a burger, which is a substitute, rises. So, as you can see, the demand, the D0, which is the blue one, will move forward to the right when the burger, the price for a burger rises. But this figure also shows that decrease in the quantity of pizza demanded when the price of a soft drink complement rises. So the price of the complement has a negative cross elasticity on pizzas. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay. More elasticities of demand. Income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand measures how the quantity demanded of a good responds to a change in the income, other things being equal. So income elasticity of demand measures how quantity demand of a good response. So when there is a change in your income, there will be a change in the quantity that you demand for a product. And that will determine your income elasticity of a demand. So the formula is the percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in the income. So that will give you the income elasticity of a demand. So the percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by percentage change in the income. So when your income increases, we will use a different quantity of that product. or when it decreases, it's the same. So you will use the percentage change of the quantity and then divide it by the percentage change in your income, and you will get income elasticity of demand. So if the income elasticity of a demand is greater than 1, demand is income elastic, and the good is a normal good. So if that formula gives you a result more than 1, then your product is income elastic and the good is normal. If the income elasticity that we just calculated by that formula is greater than 0 but less than 1, the demand is income inelastic and the good is a normal good again. So these two cases, these two scenarios, they're both normal goods. But if the income elasticity of demand is less than 0, which is negative, then the good is an inferior good. So in this case, you have only one which is different, and it's when the income elasticity is negative, which, going back to previous slide, means the percentage change in the quantity over the percentage change in the income is negative, which means that when your income increases, the quantity of that product that you use decreases, so it will give you a negative result, then it's an inferior good. Okay, so price elasticity of supply. Now we are going to the supply side. In figure A, you see a change in the demand brings a small increase in the quantity supplied and a large rise in the price. So from the D0, it moves to the D1. So it hits the supply bar on the second dot. So from $20 to $30, and the supply goes from 10 to 13. So the supply is only changed by 3, but the price has a large increase of 10. So now in figure B, a change in the demand brings a large increase in the quantity supplied and a small rise in the price. So different from the previous scenario, in this case, we have a different, there is a change in the demand, and the quantity that is supplied from 10 it goes to 20, but the price goes from 20 only to 21, right? So the contrast between the two outcomes in the figure highlights the need for a measure of the responsiveness of the quantity supplied to a price change. So now we need something to see the price elasticity of the supply. So the price elasticity of supply measures the responsiveness of the quantity supplied to change in the price of the good when all other influences on selling plans remain the same. So how do we calculate the price elasticity of supply? The elasticity of supply is calculated by using this formula: percentage change in quantity supplied divided by percentage change in the price, right? So, and the number we get, like the figure on the next slide shows 3 cases of the elasticity of supply. Supply is perfectly inelastic if the supply curve is vertical and elasticity of supply is 0. Supply is unit elastic if supply curve is linear and passes through the origin. And finally, the supply curve is perfectly elastic if the supply curve is horizontal and elasticity of supply is infinite. So in the first scenario, the price, the perfectly inelastic, is when your supply doesn't change. So the price doesn't have any influence on it. The second one is a unit elastic supply, where there is 1 unit increase in quantity supplied, whereas there is 1 unit increase in the price. And finally, perfectly elastic means that on even same price, you will have different types of quantities. So your quantity is increasing all the time because you have a perfectly elastic supply. So let's overview the factors that influence the elasticity of supply. The elasticity of supply depends on resource substitution possibilities. So by resource substitution possibilities, the easier it is to substitute among the resources used to produce a good or service, the greater it is its elasticity of supply. So when it's so easy for customers to substitute among the resources used, then the elasticity is higher. And the time frame for supply decisions. The more time that passes after a price changes, the greater is the elasticity of the supply. So the time that lapses between a price change, if it's longer, the elasticity of your supply is also higher. And the time frame of supply decisions. The more time that passes after a price change, the greater is the elasticity of supply we just discussed. Momentarily, supply is perfectly inelastic, and the quantity supplied immediately following a price change is constant. So when it's perfectly inelastic, we are talking about the momentarily supply. So the quantity supplied immediately following a price change is constant. So whenever there is a price change, there is a supply change. It's like momentarily. That's we have a perfectly inelastic supply. And the short line supply is somewhat elastic, and long-term supply is mostly elastic. So we are dealing with it with regards to time. If it's like momentarily, very fast change in the supply according to the price, it's perfectly inelastic. If it's short run, it's mostly elastic. And if it's long run, it's definitely elastic. It means with a higher level of elasticity. So short run could be unit elastic. Okay. So that is the end of these slides. I will show you some extra slides for like more of examples on the concepts because it could be confusing. But before I do that, I want to see if you have any questions for me. Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, very good. So loading the next slides that I'm going to show you. This will probably help us better understand the concepts that we discussed in the class. These are more of examples and helpful tools. So we are not going to cover any more of new topics, the same topics, but just more examples. That is strange that you haven't received any of the slides. Okay, I will make sure that you receive them. I'm not sure if the admin is permitted to give you the slides um, for these subjects due to copyright. That might be the reason. So I will double check with them. If they are supposed to do that, they will absolutely do that. Okay. So to predict the quantity effects of changes in demand and supply on prices and quantities, we need to know how responsive the demand and supply are to prices and other influences in buying plans and selling plans, right? So, as we discussed, the price elasticity of demand is a unit-free measure of responsiveness of the quantity demanded of a good to a change in its price when all other influences on buyers' plans remain the same. So we mentioned how we calculate the price elasticity of the demand by percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in the price. So as you can see, like in the first figure A, you see you have an elastic demand. On figure B, you have a unit elastic demand. And on figure C, you have inelastic demand. So why? Because in the first case, the increase in the the number that you get from the calculating that your elasticity is more than 1. Means that the responsiveness of the quantity demanded because of the change in the price is more than 1. Whereas in the second one, it's like a unit increase, so it's unit elastic. So the quantity would increase 1 if the price increases 1 in unit. And finally, in figure C, it's less than 1, so it's called inelastic. Okay? So elastic demand. Demand is elastic if a given percentage change in price results in a larger percentage change in quantity demanded. So we just discussed that the demand is elastic if a given percentage change in the price results in a larger percentage change in quantity demanded. For example, if 2% fall in price results in 4% change in quantity demanded, we have an elastic demand. It's inelastic if the price elasticity is less than 1, which also means that, for example, if a 3% decline in the price leads to just 1% increase in quantity demanded. And in these cases, the percentage change in the price is accompanied by a relatively smaller change in quantity. So this is just the amount of or quantity of change. If it's more than 1, it's elastic. If it's less than 1, it's inelastic. And if it's exactly 1, it will be unit elastic, right? So some examples here. Price elasticity for a variety of products. So you see the number of elasticity. So when they are less than 1, like all those primary needs, you see they are all less than 1, so they are inelastic. Like bread, like all those services that we require, they're inelastic. But when they are one, it's unit elastic, something like shoes, almost one. And then for those which are over one, they are elastic, like restaurant meals, lamb, mutton, all those are elastic. So substitutability, what do we mean by that? The greater the number of substitutes for a good, the more elastic its demands will be. And beef has a lot of substitutes, poultry, fish, soy products. In contrast, like illegal products like cocaine has little or no substitutes. That's why drug addicts' demand is much more inelastic than a beef eater. So, in this regard, the elasticity of demand also depends on how narrowly the product is defined. For example, which do you think has a more elastic demand? Chevron, gas, or gas? Okay, can you answer this question to me, class? Which one has more elasticity, do you think? Please answer. Hello, class. Are you still there? Could you please answer the questions? Which one do you think has more elastic demands? Chevron gas or gas? Anybody wants to answer the question? Can you hear me? Are you guys there? Okay, so could you please answer the question, Mr. Muhammad? Which one of these do you think has more elasticity? When we say gas or Chevron gas? Yes, that's correct, Chevron gas. Because we just said when we narrowly define a product, the chances that we have higher elasticity is higher. That is correct. The demand for Chevron gas is much more elastic than the demand for gas because many brands such as Shell, Texaco, or any type of Arco or whatever, they all produce gas. But there is only one brand that offers Chevron gas, so the elasticity for that is higher. Okay? Are we clear here? And then proportion of income. Other things equal, the higher the price of a good relative to your budget, the greater will be your elasticity of demand for it. Let's say a 10% increase in the price of pencils will amount to only a few pennies with little response in the amount you demand. But a 10% increase in the price of housing would have a significant impact on the quantity of house you would purchase. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So the elasticity of income also relates to the price relative to your budget. So in general, demand will tend to be more elastic in the longer run than in the short run. So let's say in energy crisis in the 70s, the demand for oil was very inelastic because people really needed oil, so they wouldn't care what is the price. But over time, businesses invested in energy-saving technologies, while people started driving more fuel-efficient cars and the demand elasticity increased. Now, so it's like over time, even over time for stuff that are inelastic, like oil or gas, it could become elastic over time because of changes in technology and everything. So as you can see here, the medical care hospitalization insurance. So this is the price elasticity in the short run and the long run. As you can see, these have all had an increase in their long run price elasticity. So in the short run, the medical care had it like much lower. It's still less than 1, but it's a huge increase. But for bus trips, as you can see, in the long run, it has changed from an inelastic to an elastic, price elastic version. Or movies, as you can see, there is a huge difference. It's less than 1 and now it's 3, so it's definitely price elastic. Price elasticity and total revenue. So let's turn to our final task of this lesson, which is to demonstrate just how powerful the price elasticity concept can be in both business and government applications. If you raise the price of a product, will the total revenue from selling that product go up or down? Okay. So the question is, most people's intuition tells you that total revenue will go up when the price increases. But the thing is, the answer is wrong, because we understood and realized we have 2 different scenarios for total revenue, because we have elasticity in action. Total revenue equals the price multiplied by quality. So, knowing what you do about price elasticity, you might already be able to answer the question like this. Suppose your business sells audio cassette tapes, and I tell you the demand for the product is relatively price elastic. So looking at this formula, what would you do to raise your total revenue? Raise or lower your price? Answer this question, please. Who wants to answer this question? Whoever answered these questions will get a point for their course. It has a point, actually, this question. Who wants to answer it? Who wants to answer this question, please? So you have this formula, you want to increase the total revenue. How would you increase the total revenue if you know that it's price elastic? This is my question. Please answer. All of you need to answer. This is a case for the class, please. Hello, are you there? You can't see the slide? That is strange. So answer my questions. You don't need to see the slides. The question is, if you know that the total revenue equals price multiplied by quantity, right? I'm telling you we have a product that is price elastic. So how do we increase our total revenue? So please give me your answers. Okay. Hello? Who wants to answer the question, please? Very good. And I would say your answer is correct, Mr. Riashi. Very good. You lower the prices. That's absolutely true. This is because in total revenue formula, P will go down by less than quantity will go up. So total revenue or TR must rise. Very good. Good job. So I'll give you a point for that. Beautiful. And as you can see on this chart, it's explained better. Okay. So as you can see, the total revenue stays the same when we have unit elastic. When it's less, it's inelastic, increase the price will increase the revenue, and decreasing the price decreases the revenue. But when it's inelastic, decreasing the price increases the total revenue, and increasing the price decreases the total revenue. Look at the case of the CEO. He was the chief executive officer who tried to bail out his software company by raising prices. So demand was highly elastic, so total revenue fell and his company went out of business. Or bus service case. Facing a revenue shortfall, she ordered an analysis of elasticity of demand for bus services. When she found that bus demand was also highly elastic, she recommended her supervisor that the transit authority lower the bus fares. And this actually increased the revenue. For marketing strategies, it's not just pricing strategies that the concept of elasticity of demand can help. Also, broader strategies like, why do we think that many airlines offer fare discounts to people who stay over on Saturday night? Airlines are trying to sort out two different kinds of customers. Business people with more inelastic demands who want to fly home on the weekends and perhaps be with their families, versus pleasure travelers who don't mind staying overnight on Saturday. So the airline can effectively charge two prices, a higher one to business travelers and a lower one to pleasure travelers. So this means more total passengers and more total revenue. Can you see how it helps, like, even in marketing strategies? Another question. Why don't most new cars sell at their sticker price? Put it another way, why do we have to go in and haggle when you buy a car, whereas if you go in and buy a gallon of milk, you pay the sticker price? So car salespersons are trained to sort out comparison shoppers with more elastic demands from impulse buyers who have inelastic demands. By not listing the selling price of cars, the salesperson can charge the impulse buyers more. So they charge you according to your elastic or inelastic demand. Some public policy applicants, for example, the concept of price elasticities can also help us to think through a wide variety of public policy problems. As you can see, what happens in the figure when the U.S. government escalates its war on drugs by interdicting large quantities of illegal shipments from Colombia. So you'll see that there is a huge increase in the prices. So because crack addicts have to now pay more for their fixed crimes, their crime increases, and robberies and burglaries also increases. So then you'll see, then they would consider whether they should legalize the drugs. The logical thing to do, at least from An economic point of view would seem to be just legalize drugs. But beyond the obvious moral question raised by the proposal, some economists have argued that while drug addicts are highly insensitive to price, the casual drug user is highly price sensitive. So this suggests that the war on drugs has little effect on curbing consumption by drug addicts and have big effect on reducing consumption among casual users, presumably respond to price hikes by substituting cheaper drugs like alcohol or more expensive drugs like cocaine. Or agricultural support. So the problem here is the demand for farm products is highly inelastic. So it's less than one for sure. This means that during a year of bumper crops, the quantity demanded will change only a little bit, but food prices will plummet. So many farmers go bankrupt when crops are plentiful. One way to address this problem is to restrict farm output, and this has been regularly done with many farm products from milk and oranges, corn, and wheat. So, like excise taxes. Tax also is one of the ways. So, involves the levying of the so-called excise or sales taxes. If the government imposes a sales tax on a product that is highly elastic, what do you think will happen to total tax revenue? The answer is total revenue will fall. We said when it's elastic, the price increase will reduce the revenue. So at least most legislatures are smart enough to seek out products with more inelastic demands to pass. Products like alcohol and tobacco. Okay, very good. So, do you have any questions for me so far? Any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Comments? Okay, so your task is give me an elastic and inelastic product and tell me how to increase the revenue on each of them. So I want you to pick one elastic product and tell me how you could increase the total revenue, and also choose an inelastic product and tell me how to increase the revenue. If you could please work on it in the next couple of minutes and then answer, that would be great. So that's our task for the class. Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes. Okay, so are you ready for your examples? I'm ready to hear them, or you can write them down for me. Okay, are you there, please? Would you like to share your examples, please? I need an elastic and inelastic product with the explanation on how to increase the total revenue. Okay, hello? Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me, please? Could you please confirm that you are hearing my voice? Okay, beautiful. So could you please go ahead and give me your example, Mr. Zarko? So one elastic and one inelastic demand, and then give me how we can increase the total revenue, if it's elastic and if it's inelastic. Okay? Please answer my questions. Okay, I'll give you a few more minutes to think about it, and we go from there. Okay. When it comes to the gas, Mr. Zargon, the elasticity for gas, it's uh, it's not that much higher than 1. It could be even less than 1. So gas would be actually one of those products that it's inelastic because people need to drive, so they have to use certain level of gas. But for a certain level, of course, it has some elasticity. It's not zero. So that's why this happens with it. But a good example for elastic demand would be, let's say, diamonds or luxury products, luxury cars, houses, all those that are highly priced and they are luxurious. So a difference in their price would increase the revenue, which means that the reduction in the price increases the revenue. But for gas, actually, it's different. For gas, increasing the price in gas increases the revenue. So reduction in the price for gas decreases the revenue. So basically, gas would be an inelastic demand, and decreasing the price decreases the revenue, increasing the price increases the revenue. But a good example for elastic is like diamonds. Yeah. So those products that you mentioned, like tobacco and all that, is also inelastic, but gas is also one of them. So for elastic, it's mostly luxurious products. Okay, that's good. So for the rest of you, please email me your answers to the task, and we will go from there. So if there's not any other questions, so we will finish the class, and I'll wish you a nice week. Thank you.